notes email, or how did you get the link to get here?
I got it. 1 second. It
If not, we
was,
can make sure you guys have that. If you want to put your emails in the comments, we can make sure we get you the Flock Notes link.
okay.
I have Galaxy Buds, but I don't know why they won't work.
Hi, Mary.
Oh, we'll have to figure that
Hi,
out.
Emily.
Morning.
Hello, everyone. Good
Hi.
morning.
How are you?
Good. How was everybody there?
Good.
Good, thank
Stuff.
you.
Stuff from Thanksgiving, right?
Right.
Mm.
Still eating the leftovers.
Very, very good. Okay.
We got about 5 more minutes, so feel free to grab some coffee or chat away. Don't feel like you can't chat while we're waiting. So we've got a few more minutes. A lot of people come on last minute, so we don't want to start too early. So Dean, how was breakfast?
You know, it was an egg bake. It was very good.
Did you make it this morning, or do you eat it the rest of the week?
My
like
wife made it on Sunday, but we've just, okay, this is a funny story. My mom loves to give us homemade bread.
Nice.
Really means bread you bought in the freezer at the grocery store and you cooked in a pan.
Okay.
And it's fine, and it's very lovely, but we don't like it as our choice. But one time, like 4 months ago, this is a COVID blessing. My wife was like, I was like, can we have that egg bake? And she's like, well, I don't have croutons. And she's like, I'll just use the bread, your mom. We'll see what happens. And it's awesome in that. So,
Nice.
so when my mom will say, how was the bread? I say it was great. And I'm not lying. I'm just not telling her that we're using it in an egg bake with ham, cheese, and other things.
I've never heard of croutons in an egg bake.
Oh, there's this
Yeah.
egg bake where you use croutons and then cream of mushroom soup and eggs and ham and other stuff. I'm sure it's incredibly healthy. Because like we would take the croutons that they give you from Olive Garden, because we like to buy the family size salad, especially during Lent on Fridays.
Yeah.
And then we'd just be like, oh, we got enough croutons. We're making an egg bake. We just and stuff. But it's nothing. I mean, it's a Campbell's soup. You can mix it up and have like special Campbell's soup as opposed to regular mushroom. You do the cremini Campbell's soup or whatever. But no, so
I do
now I
that a
look
lot
forward-
though. I'll make an
forward to
egg
it.
bake on Saturday or Sunday, and then I eat it the whole week.
yeah. So no, that's kind of where we're at. But no, I will, Amanda, at the end or where time allows, I'll give a little recap of what's been going on. What I know what's going on with the Archdiocese, and then promote a meeting next Thursday where we're going to have the Minnesota Department of Health on at
Oh.
APBA, where all of you could be invited if you wish. I could send you that link. You do not have to be members to APBA for this. This is a affects us all thing.
Cool.
But it's helpful because we've had Marge Higgins on, who's the person who meets with the Archbishop every 2 weeks, I think, about once a month since March. Marge and I are on first name basis now, which is for her. Pray for Marge. What's nice is she gives us a current status of where we're at in COVID, and then she allows us to submit questions ahead of time, and then I facilitate questions real time after she presents. So it's been very helpful for parishes to say, oh, I thought if we're outside, you don't have to. No, that's no. That was a misunderstanding back in May, but we're in December now, kind of thing. But I'll just promote that opportunity to the group.
So I don't see Julie or Nicole on yet. If they aren't on right away, because I think both of them want to be on together, but Nicole may have to deal with kids too. So do you want to maybe start if they're not ready right away?
Oh, absolutely. I'm quite flexible.
Well, there's Nicole right now too.
There's
Oh, good.
Nicole.
Yay. Good morning, Nicole.
Good morning. How is everybody?
Good. How are you? Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
Good.
Did you have a good Thanksgiving, Nicole?
We did. I found out Colin's one of his favorite foods is sugar cookies. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So it was pretty cute. I gave him a little bit and then he giggled in joy. And then he kept, and I tried not to have him eat it too fast. So I had little pieces in my hand and he takes his little hand, he folds my fingers back to go grab another piece. So it was pretty fun. I know it was, smaller Thanksgiving obviously this year, but I realized I normally actually don't have time to make cookies with the kids because we're so busy packing them up and taking them to family and stuff. So it was, so I think we did the best we could, all things considered. But
Mhm.
how about you guys? Anyone have anything fun or interesting happen this time around?
Got about 75% of my Christmas shopping done, so I was happy with that.
Yep. Nice.
My
Yeah,
housemate and I decided it was such an unusual year that we would just forego the turkey and everything. So we made 3 different kinds of homemade empanadas. So spent the day
Ooh.
cooking and eating, but just you thought, it's not going to be what's typical. So let's just be totally outside the box. So that was fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, but those are fun to make too, I bet, right? Because then you can just put the different fillings in and
Yep.
I
Mhm.
love that.
Yep. We had a whole assembly line going in the kitchen.
Nice.
Well, I think we might have a few more people hopping on here, but in interest of getting started on time, I know Amanda has a prayer to kick us off, and then we can kind of dive into. Nicole, were you waiting for Julie? Did you want to present together on the communication survey?
Ideally, but you know what? If something came up with her, I can certainly do the whole thing. So if there's something else on the agenda, maybe we could do that first, and then I can always
guessing-
pop in. And
Yeah, she might pop in a few minutes, but I know Dean had an announcement to make too, so maybe we could have him start off and give her a few minutes.
yeah, that'd be great.
Perfect. All right, Amanda, would you like to kick off the
Sure.
prayer?
All right. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, let the good news of your marvelous deeds fall on every ear, and let all tongues rejoice in your wisdom, your compassion, your faithfulness, and your love. Make each of us bold, and let us share your word with those you desire to reach. As our heart overflows with your love, speak through us. Let us proclaim your glory and your majesty, and tell of the kindness you have shown your people. This we ask through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen.
Mhm.
All right, so for the agenda today, like I mentioned, and we had sent out in the email, the Archdiocese sent out a communication survey back in August, was it, Nicole?
I think yes, that sounds right.
Okay, and just to kind of feel out how parishes adapted to COVID communications wise, what tools were used, what tools were effective, and how everybody pivoted, what parishes will continue to do moving forward, and that type of thing. So Nicole and Julie Craven, one of the members of this group, are going to present on that today, and kind of the findings, the overall findings that came out of that. But before they get started, I know Dean had an announcement that he wanted to make too. So we'll give Julie a little bit of time since I don't see her on here quite yet. And then hopefully she'll join us in a few minutes. So Dean, go ahead with
Sure.
your.
Thank you. So some of you are new. I'm Dean Rademacher. I'm Parish Director at St. Joseph's in New Hope in Plymouth. I also represent this group at the Coalition of Ministries, which is an archdiocesan group that gets together each month to discuss how lay ecclesial ministers are serving in the parishes and collaborate with the archdiocese. We have a monthly meeting coming up next Thursday. It's an APBA ArchSPM Zoom meeting. And we are going to have Marge Higgins from the Minnesota Department of Health on, which I have essentially done about once a month since March. Father Tix will also be on the call. He's arranging his schedule for that. But what I wanted you to be aware of is I'll send out through the Catholic communicators that you can join that meeting. The format is that ahead of time, you can send me questions and I will get them to Marge ahead of time. The way I've set up this format is presenters present at our Zoom first, then through a private chat. Like if you're watching, you're like, oh, I have a question. I really want that answered. You chat it to me and then I ask the presenter. It's a way to facilitate it because sometimes we have over 150 people on the Zoom and I can't just have the presenter trying to chat everything. So think about COVID questions you have. It's also where some best practices get shared. But I will be sending that out through Amanda. Would I send that to you and you would facilitate it out? Would that be okay? As I volunteer people?
Yeah, that would work.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So that'll be next Thursday at 1 p.m. And we will invite you in. We did something last meeting about mental health and invited different people in, including NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illness.
Is that December 10th?
December 10th, 1 p.m. Yep. So just be aware of that. I'd also, just by a show of hands, how many of you saw the Archbishop's letter on November 20th about COVID and kind of taking a step back in some areas?
Or possibly the
okay.
video. I'm not sure who all the letter went to. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the just, you know, we're in this situation where we needed to just take a note out of an abundance of caution, which, by the way, I'm sure all of us wake up in the morning sometimes thinking, out of an abundance of caution, I need to communicate this way. But that letter was very helpful, I think, in just saying we need to, obviously, we continue to have mass where I serve and such, and that is, you know, critical. But some other things, like a Bible study, that's gone virtual. So doing some safe things. So just wanted to make you aware of that. And you know, we're in unusual times, but we need to continue to connect with our parishioners just in new and creative ways. And all the people on here are doing that. There's some blessings of COVID, I think, where we're learning to connect in new creative ways for people, but I know we all long to be back together, but we got to just wait. It's a long tunnel. It seems like a weird Advent, right? We're in anticipation, we're waiting. And we just know that Christmas is going to come, but the COVID tunnel we have to get through is a little longer than that. So that's all I had to share, but I'll send out that information for the 10th. And again, if you have any questions, the way it works is nobody knows who's asking the question. I'm the face of the question. It also means if somebody sent in something goofy or disrespectful, like early on we had somebody who sent in a note saying COVID wasn't real. Well, then that doesn't make the question to the expert because that doesn't reflect well on the membership and it doesn't help the dialogue. But if you have a burning question that you need to ask, I'll make sure it gets asked in a professional, helpful way, if that makes sense. All right. Thank you, though. But seriously, you all have gifts and skills. So this group is very helpful. And yes, I'm the weird parish director that comes to these meetings. But you are critical. You are becoming more critical to our mission. Whether some people need to realize that, but you are. So thank you. I'm done.
Thank you, Dean. Okay, so Nicole, do you want to start or should we open it up for open discussion for a little bit before? Let's see,
yeah.
I don't have Julie's number, so I can't.
I'm trying to see if I think I have a number for her, so I'm gonna just text her real quick.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I have a couple other things I can mention in the meantime.
Sure. Yep.
So,
Go right ahead.
Just again, and Dean, you mentioned this before too about how great it is to talk about the joy and the benefits of this group because it is really, I think, unique in many ways. And so that was validated recently. So as you know, through the Catholic, some of you know, there's the Catholic Press Association, which is the national organization and has moved to a Catholic Media Association to encompass all who work in parish marketing, or as well as national newspapers, even people who do Catholic media like movies and things like that. So it's quite a broad group now. Well, one of the people who is a member, an international member, they also have this group called SIGNUS, which is like the international Catholic group of communicators. So she's from Dublin, and she did some PR training she offered for free through Catholic Media Association. So I took it, and then she asked what I thought of it. So we chatted a little bit. Well, as it turns out, she was just fascinated because she asked a little bit more about my role. And I talked about this group and how I work with the communicators at parishes. She says they don't really have anything like that as for parishes, or especially Catholic schools in Dublin. And especially, you know, that idea is that she's a marketing, you know, and PR professional. And again, she's seen it at diocese, but not necessarily just seeing how parishes embrace that. So she just thought it was a fantastic thing. So in fact, I'm actually going to be on her radio show on Dublin FM and coming up in a few weeks here, which apparently has a pretty broad audience when seeing that as FM, like 250,000. I don't know if they actually watch that show or listen to that show specifically, but it's a show that she does for PR professionals. And she specifically wants to hear about kind of how this group works, how people on the parish level are doing communications in schools and working with the diocese. And I just told her, I said, it's been great that we're one at the table, right? You know, grassroots living effort, and everyone has their own expertise. And it was just very interesting. And I know she said in Dublin, they just don't see that. So anyways, just wanted to let you guys know about that. So when it's there, if I have an audio link, I'll send it up, but it's kind of fun. So the second thing is, and I apologize in advance that this is coming like the first week of December, but the Archdiocese, we were trying to see if there was anything we could do for Christmas, and it seemed like a lot of parishes really had this in hand quite well for how you're promoting things. But a few people had said they could use a few resources, maybe like a form letter or things like that, as far as like a Christmas toolkit sort of thing. So for any of you who don't have that ready already, we are going to have that hopefully this week on the website, archsbm.org/Christmas 2020. So I'll send that out once it's live. But basically what I've done is I've collected a lot of the free Christmas resources that I've seen online, and I'm going to be posting those. We have a graphic, and I'm going to see if I can share my screen and see if I can pull it up. But a graphic that would go with the letter, and then we're going to make like Facebook graphics and things like that, so that those would be up this week as well. So let me see if I'm able to find it right now based on, okay, I'll try one more time, but it's based on the idea of gratitude, essentially. You know, thinking of what is one word or phrase that might actually, that might be universal enough to resonate with folks. So we decided to focus on that. And then again, that would speak to, here we go. Okay, so we can kind of see the graphic there with the word and then kind of the little crutch in the middle. So yeah, so that's the one we'll have it available as a Facebook cover or other sorts of graphics. And then again, with the letter that you could use if you choose to do so. And again, I'll kind of put that out this week for those who are interested and would find it helpful.
Nicole,
Yes.
can I use that graphic to make a large poster for outside of our church?
Yeah, let me see how large. Do you know how large you would need it?
It would be 4 by 6, 4 feet by 6 feet. Or
I'm pretty sure it's
2 feet
vector,
by
so I think
6.
you can
Or
make it that large.
actually, it's longer. We could do 2 feet by 6 actually also.
2 feet by 6?
I have a
Okay.
poster maker machine, so,
Nice.
but I just want that would be a nice thing because, yeah.
Great.
Can I ask
Yeah,
a
and I'll put
question?
Yeah.
This may be a very silly question, and it's kind of following Dean's request. I see such amazing graphics and fun social media, and even on other parishes' websites. It's amazing what some people are doing, and I love it. How much I don't want to take someone else's idea or use someone else's language. Is there kind of a rule between sharing graphics and messages? And I don't want to get St. Odilia into trouble by sharing someone else's communication.
Yeah. You know, I would defer to the wisdom of the group on this, but I'll tell you my 2 cents. What I've always heard is, you know, good ideas are likely to be copied. And
Okay.
I think that is generally, I mean, being that we're all of the same mission, I don't know as anyone would have a problem with that, you know, unless it was just, I don't know, I mean, maybe neighboring organizations, but even in that case, I highly doubt it. So what you might want to do just for a good measure is just say, you know, maybe pop over a Facebook message to the one you like and just say, hey, I love this idea, just to let you know as a courtesy, we're thinking of doing something very similar here.
Okay.
And,
Good
you know,
idea.
and if it's unique enough, like for example, for Holy Name, they did Holy Name of Jesus, they did this ways to go to mass online lineup. And I thought it was so great that I wanted us to make kind of our own little poster on it. And so we credited them because it was just, you know, the original idea was just so clearly something that they had done. So you might want to do something like that, but
Okay.
oh no, absolutely. That's part of the purpose, is that we're all taking great ideas. I mean, again, unless anyone else had other thoughts on that.
There usually is no problem if you reach out to the person, compliment them and thank them, and they'll say, by all means, use it. But
Okay.
we oftentimes say in communications and in stewardship, another committee I'm on, stealing is encouraged, but just thank them. You know, say, hey, that
Right.
looks great. Can I use that, or can I tweak that? And that people are going to say absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Bottom
because I
line
mean,
is
really-
reach out and
Mhm.
compliment, love the idea. Is it okay if we kind of take your lead on that and create our own? So,
Yeah, 'cause
Right.
like I'm going to take Nicole's graphic and I'm going to put it on a billboard I've already built on the corner of the street of the busiest street of our church. And then I'm going to have our website underneath it so
perfect.
that people can
Perfect.
figure out when to come to mass and stuff. But Nicole,
Okay.
that's how I'm going to use it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, right, Nicole, that graphic is adorable. And as soon as I saw it, I thought, Facebook, I'm using that. And may we use that same graphic? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
We can
that's
use that
exactly what it
same
was.
graphic.
It was meant to be for something that parishes could use and then personalize.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, I'm not seeing Jen yet, so I think I'll just go ahead and take a dive in. Now, she was the one, you know, full disclosure, she was the one who kind of wrote the report. So I know I helped collect the data, but I'm going to probably have to read off the report a little bit because I don't have it quite as at the top of mind. Oh, you know what? I just want to do something real quick. So there's a couple of people sent some things to chat based on the last conversation. So let me just read it just to make sure. Mary Lou, I would think you need to ask for permission first. Emily, or credit the original source. Both good ideas. And the parents may not have the permission from the graphic artist to share it. Well, and I think, Rhonda, let's see, if you have the original poster, want to use their image and text. Yes, and you know what? There's a very good distinction. Thank you for bringing that up. So if it's a particular image, that's when you really have to worry about copyright,
Mhm.
right? Like you wouldn't, if someone wanted to, they did this beautiful image of the nativity and it was all cool, and you're like, oh, great, I'm going to download it and I'm going to use it. No. You know, that is where you definitely need to find out what the intellectual property is, similarly to why you would never download any image from a website and use it on your website, right? Like, you know, those are more likely to have intellectual property things attached to it. Now, wording is very different. You know, it's very hard to like copyright a phrase or something like that. So, you know, you can't just say, just because someone said, you know, on Ash Wednesday, get your ash at mass, you know, like you can't copyright that. You know, you can, you know, just because one parish used it and it was clever, that doesn't mean that no other parish can use it without crediting that parish. So language, ideas, idioms, things like that, like those are all things that you could definitely, you know, it's nice to credit them maybe because they'd be more likely to see your post and their post kind of side by side. So it would be nice to kind of, you know, maybe check in with them first. But you know, funny clips or ideas or creative ways to do it, that's more free for the taking. Images always need to check for the source. So thank you, everyone. That was a very good clarification. And hey, I see that Julie's here. Hi, Julie. So we're just about to dig into the survey, and Megan set us up nicely talking about how we sent it out in August, talking to parishes about how they were able to pivot in response to COVID-19 and taking a look at the results. Julie, do you just want to go ahead and take it from there? And then I'll certainly chime in as needed.
You betcha. Morning, everybody. The remarkable thing that there are several remarkable things in the results of the survey, and a big thank you, first of all, for everyone who participated. One of the happy surprises was the rate of response. It's typically on a survey like that, if you got 20 or 30%, that's pretty good. People are busy. And even, you know, if you've ever been in a setting where human resources always seem to be sending you an email with a survey and they wanted to know kind of what you were thinking and everything, even if you incentivize people, there's a drawing or whatever, there's a coffee mug, the rates are pretty low. The rate for this one was in excess of 75%. And I think that says several things to us. You know, one, how engaged our Catholic communicators are, how important they saw this, and that they kind of wanted to mark this moment in time, because this is significant as far as what we saw and what we all experienced, particularly back in March and April. Now, there were survey results that were not surprising. More visits to your website. More people added new platforms like video. There was more engagement in our social media platforms. But it's when you think about how long, had we not had the pandemic, and all of us might have said, we're going to do more video, or we're going to enhance that part of our website, or we're going to try to integrate our communications in such a way, you know, that they reinforce each other and that they are truly best practices. But we had to do it like in 6 weeks. And so if you're thinking back to pandemic time, if you remember feeling a little bit tired, I think we all kind of get a you bet we were on that one. What stands out, I'll point out a couple things that I thought were kind of highlights from the results, and I'll focus on the communication side. It did end up having some parish life questions as well. And Nikki and I knew as soon as we proposed this, and Tom and Maria gave it an enthusiastic thumbs up, that there was going to be the danger of some project creep, because, you know, you look at that and you're like, this is great. Boy, it would also be great if we knew this or if we knew that. Well, the balancing act with surveys is always that it's long enough to get you some good actionable information, but not such a long survey that people get halfway through it and they're like, I wasn't planning on something that was going to take me this long, and they don't complete it. So you don't want that either. But the standout by far was what changed with video work. And I don't know about your parishes, but videos had been on my list. It was kind of like, you know what? Next year, we're gonna start adding video content. That would be a really good idea. It's time to do, but there's a lot involved in that. I mean, there's a technical side and staffing and equipment, this is one of those, in my view, sneaky Jesus moments where it was like, you know what, you really need to do video, and I'm going to give you the opportunity now. But the work on the parishes that were using video went, and including live stream, jumped way up. I'm taking a quick look at the summary that Nikki sent to you yesterday, along with the results of the survey. The majority of parishes were not using video before that. That jumped up, you know, real quickly, and including, oh, there it is, up to, yeah, huge numbers. And I think when you think back to the frantic texts we were sending one another and how Flocknote lit up during that time, there was an awful lot of, we want to try to live stream on YouTube. We don't have enough subscriptions. We happen to use eCatholic. Who's doing it on eCatholic? So I think the value of this network really, really proved itself during that time. People really upped their presence on Facebook. There were 2 social media platforms that were not getting a lot of use before the pandemic and really didn't increase all that much afterward, and they included Twitter and Instagram. One of the things that I thought was was just kind of a fun note was there weren't very many parishes using FM radio or FM transmitters before before this, and it went from 3% before the pandemic to 23% afterward. So for those of you that have these great big parking lots, we don't downtown, an opportunity to have those broadcast, adapted masses so we could be together, in a way that was still safe. We don't have a lot of detail on bulletins. They remain an important communications tool. Some parishes did, suspended them for a while. We have still suspended ours. We're waiting until we're singing again to bring that back. Other parishes went back to their bulletins and then relied on the fact that people could get them from their website. When parishes were asked if they used a new technology or format to celebrate Mass, 93% said yes. It's kind of like because we had to. So those were the highlights. I'll let Nikki grab. There were some very interesting things about online giving too. And what I know, at least at Our Lady of Lourdes, it provided kind of, I think for some of us, it's a great first time ever benchmark. So as Nikki and Tom and Maria and I were looking at, what do you do with this? Because I don't know that any other archdiocese has stopped to take this kind of a look back like we have. This could be a good benchmark in a year or two to see how it compares. Because the next thing that's going to be interesting is to see how behavior changes once the churches are opened up again. Once we've got, holy water in the fonts, and once we're singing and the all of the protocols that we've had to put in place, once they're gone, what's the behavior going to look like then? How are our communications going to adapt at that time? But sometimes when you're in the midst of a big change like this, you don't even realize it's kind of like, and now we had to do this. This is the kind of change that communicators outside the Catholic Church are describing as something that would have been taken somewhere between 3 and 5 years to happen. And we ended up doing it in a couple of months out of necessity. But I know when we looked at the numbers for our live stream masses sometimes at different points during the pandemic, we would not have been able to fit all those people in the church. So how we take these new tools and these new capabilities and adapt them for what's going to be continued change to serve our mission is going to be kind of that wonderful question, that wonderful next step. So Nikki, you want to add anything that you thought were some high points?
Sure. Well, I think, kind of to what you're talking about, Julie, we were looking at, first of all, again, how to use the data. I think it's just, again, valuable that we captured it. Someone from our archives office actually made a really poignant comment, and she said, we're at a really unique point in history where we know we're part of something that's going to be big, that we're going to want to archive, because, we can be preemptive about that by having these records, taking these surveys, looking at what happened and what changed among parishes and among communications as a whole during this very interesting time. So I think there's value in that. I think from a reporting standpoint, we talked about maybe a look back 1 year later, knowing that it really hit in March. And when you look at it, especially from a publications outlook, March is not that far away. And so, just kind of looking at then and now, that might be a good place to explore some of these ideas. Or like Julie said, it may be interesting, kind of, there's a network of other communication directors through the Catholic Media Association. It might be need to just say, hey, this is what we did. Have you guys thought about doing something similar, kind of comparing that sort of thing? I mean, ultimately, just the idea of, again, we have always known, and I'll tell you, our CFO said this about business administrators too. Like, we've always known that people wore many hats and had many challenges. And this just, again, showed the depth of skill and passion that the people serving our local Catholic community have to have made these changes and to have worked so hard to continue to serve the publics that you serve. It'll be interesting. moving forward. I think there's just in many cases things that we've learned and things that we would want to continue, because there's always going to be people, once the dispensation is lifted, that's going to be another communication challenge of how you talk about the idea of what's the difference between, doing live stream when you need to, obviously, but the value of being in person, that's going to be kind of a change, a transition back. But I also think that there's going to be challenges such as the fact that people are going to be even more discerning of content now that everyone who maybe wasn't doing video before is doing video all the more often. That content bar is going to be even higher. And we've seen that as well with our live stream numbers. And I mean, video is still king, but people are being even more discerning about what they're watching because it's just out there all the more. And maybe there's something to be said for now that we know we can change on a dime. Does that mean we can make the leap into voice even sooner, or other forms of marketing that that we haven't really explored in deeper levels? So I think that there is a lot to be taken from it. But again, as Julie mentioned, I think that just the numbers of replies just showed the passion that is behind communication here and just how important it is in a world where so much competes for our attention, how we take the greatest message in the world and we can help kind of break through some of that clutter to share it with folks. And just, we're very grateful.
Yeah. Any questions? Anything jump out at folks after they had a chance to look at the results, or any suggestions as far as how we use this information?
So I have a question that the conversation that we have been having in the office in the last couple of weeks is we've been making all these changes to live stream, but the comments from the people, and they're even walking right up to the priest and saying this of, I really hope that even after the Archdiocese lifts the dispensation that you keep doing live stream. I just love having mass in my living room with coffee and pajamas on. They're like, oh,
We had
what you just said?
that come to one of our young people who is a very traditional, wonderful young woman, and I would say it freaked her out. She did not want to, and she's got huge technical skills, but she didn't want to be a part of something that was keeping people. She didn't want to make it so good that it was people weren't coming into mass, and it resulted in a great conversation. And I think it's sort of the beautiful both and of our faith. I think because we have budgeted to do live stream through the end of the year through June. So that's kind of where we're starting from. But I think the interesting thing is, and my husband's 70 and he's got asthma. So, and our kids we've got a son-in-law who's a doc. We have not been to mass since this started. And it breaks my heart. On the other hand, so I think we all want to be there, and we understand it's the source and some of our faith. Our faith is very much a participatory faith. But I think about the emails I've gotten from folks that have said, my husband had foot surgery before all this broke. We would not have been able to get to mass. Now we can go to mass. A woman who said, you know what? I've got a newborn after a very difficult delivery, and we've got some health issues. I wouldn't be able to bring that baby to the church if we didn't have a pandemic. I can be a part of mass. We have heard, by way of some of our restorative justice work with victim survivors, that being able to come to mass in a live stream, if they've got struggles with the church, if they've been harmed by the church, is kind of a safe way to be invited back in. In my view, it's a huge evangelization tool, because you think of the people that have been curious about the church, but we always try to talk about how we're welcoming and accessible and all this kind of stuff. But if you're not Catholic and you come into a Catholic church, I mean, we kind of have our own thing going on there. And it's if you can watch it on video, you get you understand the liturgy a little better and the readings. But and I'm not saying that a Catholic mass is intimidating, but we've all heard those comments about how I don't know what to do or what that's all about. So I think it's welcoming. I think it's evangelization. I think offering that, and at the same time saying, but you need to be back. You need to be in line for the Eucharist. You need to be in community with the rest of the faithful. I think there can be a both thing there. And because where I think people get real hung up is this young woman was real hung up on the dispensation thing. And she was like, she was not going to be a part of something that got somebody outside of that. But I think a more robust, extended conversation would be helpful, because it created one in our parish when that subject came up. So it's we want to be back, but I am a huge fan of live stream now and the opportunities that it presents.
You know,
That's
and
what
yeah,
a
that's a
long-winded
great-
answer.
yeah, I think that when, you know, we actually have, I don't know if you guys knew this at all, but we had the person who did our Synod Praying with Scripture series and Healing and Hope, the video, was actually someone from our archives department. So we just came to find out that he had a wonderful video skills, and he is now actually moved over to the communications office so that we have a videographer on our staff. And so the thing that makes that nice is that we can explore video projects a little bit greater. So what that's telling me is I think that maybe an educational series may be helpful, or maybe not a series, but just even short videos about what, you know, what it means to be at Mass, what, you know, dispensation is for and things. Because I mean, I kind of, to when you talked about, Julie, I felt bad when I had to, you know, basically 2 days after giving birth that I didn't want to be at Mass with my 2-day-old. Well, there's no reason to feel bad about that. You know, you probably shouldn't be at Mass at that point. But that I'm teaching about, like, you know, not letting people like off the hook, like, you know, for not being in person, but just what is that great joy and the privilege of being able to go to Mass, and when maybe is it the best choice for charity or for your own health and spirituality to maybe not go that week for those certain reasons. And so we can look at that from an archdiocesan standpoint, just to see how we can maybe have a series that parishes could use that's an educational tool. And once we get to that point, you know, I mean, it's always been a hard thing. They talk about, like, one of the bars for being a practicing Catholic is attending Mass once a month. And, you know, and it's a challenge. So it being that we're supposed to be doing it even weekly, but it's, yeah, I think maybe then we can talk more from maybe a marketing standpoint, welcoming that back. But even just the education on why is it important in general, I think that's something we could work on as an archdiocese.
Yeah, I think that's really, we've talked about a lot of that, and those are great points from both of you, and I love the wording of that. And that's what we've tried to communicate with people. But I think too, as a society, I mean, oh, he didn't come into work today because he just has a headache, you know, but now I think COVID has been like, no, they have the flu or they have a cold, and it is in charity for them not to be here. So I think something from the Archdiocese of that communication of the privilege to go to Mass, but reasons why not to, and all of us still offering the live stream even after the dispensation. So I love all that wording, and I love something coming out that we can all share. That's continued education, like 30-second to 1-minute clips would be great each time, talking about one specific thing. And just, I can see people rewatching them a couple of times and just continuing that education for people. I love that. Thank you for those wordings. I appreciate that from both of you.
Julie, I had a comment, of course, because I can't not comment. I think we have to be thinking ahead to when COVID is on the waning, and inviting people back to Mass, but also inviting them into a relationship with each other.
Yeah.
So the Mass is, you know, the Eucharist is a verb, it's not a noun. And how are we going to, and we're talking about this at St. Joe's, how are we going to invite people back to Mass and invite, you know, I was talking to Catherine Turner, who's a sweet lady that works at the Archdiocese, and she's like, I miss the Mass, Dean, but I also miss the social, the seeing people after, because even if we go, we have our masks, we don't see each other. So we're gonna have to re-invite people and engage people in that. We were blessed to have the Archbishop. We hosted him 4 weeks ago, and we had a listening session with the leadership, the staff, Parish Council, Finance Council, and one of my Parish Council members brought up the synod next fall in the small groups and said, we need to do more than just the synod. That's probably going to be the time that we are inviting people back in, because it's summer, Minnesota, but come fall, but we want to invite them for the mass. That's, you know, that's our foundation. But what else do we do with that?
Mhm.
You know, do we have a once every quarter educational mass that explains why we do it?
Yeah.
Not how you do it. We're so good at like how you should do things at mass. You should put your hands this way, but what does it mean? What does it mean at our core? And that's where people are missing it, because they come and they're like, first off, I don't get the gestures. Why am I kneeling? Why do we do that? Well, the why is the part we need to answer also, not just the how.
Well, Dean, I think you nailed it. And we've had similar conversations, but with a twist at Lourdes. I think there's so much pent up, you know, I can't wait till we can do this again, that there's going to be also a little bit of a scheduling thing, because, you know, frankly, what good is it to have a weekend where you've got every one of your ministry teams doing some social / ministry event, and, you know, they're all kind of drawing from the same audience, you know, needing the same kitchen and the same rooms. So I think almost like I can't think of a better word than this, but like a reopening plan. But
Correct. And even if it's like this weekend, we're doing hospitality after mass, we want everyone, and it's hosted by the worship commission.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
next weekend, it's hosted by the young adults.
Yeah.
And it's a way to engage people back in the parish in ways they might have been disconnected for a year.
Yeah.
Because they
Exactly.
were doing safe choices,
Mhm.
but we're going to have to think about how to re-engage, because other places are definitely going to have a plan.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you bring up a good point as far as just thinking through, because, you know, as communicators, what we've all seen, and I saw this in my former life too, every one of your stakeholder audiences thinks that their stuff is the most important and the priority and the most timely. So, you know, and they've all been waiting to jump in the game. So some kind of a thoughtful approach to reopening is going to be important. And I really like, Dean, your idea about you using this, I call it the time in the desert, as a learning thing as far as the whys in addition to the hows.
And how our audience looks different too. I mean, I think we're going to be surprised how many people have jumped parishes, and the people we thought we had are not there. I'm thinking about, as we're talking about ways to re-engage our parishioners, I'm thinking half of the Catholics I know have now found a new parish over this, because they have been able to shop and to see who they connect with, which community seems to be doing things the way they want to do it.
Yeah.
You know, my own parents have now shockingly flipped parishes, which for me, seeing them do that for the same parish for 35 years now, they're switching to another parish. It's amazing, but they reconnected with a different community virtually.
Yeah.
And so it's going to look very different, I think, when we do talk about evangelization. I have a cousin who is now coming back to the church after 2 divorces, has now felt safe enough to watch mass online.
Yeah.
And he just baptized his daughter 2 weeks ago, which is shocking because his other 2 children are not baptized yet. So, I mean, I am just watching this unfold going, who is this?
Yeah.
But it has given us a new opportunity. And like you're saying, Julie, with evangelization and reaching these audiences, I think there's a larger conversation as communicators that we could possibly have, that we can figure out how to tap into those fringe members, the people coming back to the church, maybe engaging them in a new way that is not overwhelming, of like every Sunday, come on by, you know, because the last thing, you know, how to ease them into an in-person mass, I think is going to be kind of a large conversation. Even my parents have gotten used to not going in, you know, with of course underlying health issues, and they're in their 60s, and you know, so it's just going to be a very interesting, I think this is a very good conversation to have, and we can even have like a whole other meeting about ways we can figure this out.
Well, and from the standpoint of our programs and our ministries, and I heard someone comment, more related to education, it's the end of snow days.
Mhm.
Think of the events you'd have at your parish, and everything was rocking and rolling on Wednesday and Thursday, and then the forecast for the weekend was horrible. And you're already starting to get the phone calls from people saying, are we still gonna have it if the blizzard hits? Now it'll just be a matter of, we'll flip the switch to virtual. But I love this, and this came from one of our young parishioners, the kind of the sneaky Jesus moments, because it's almost as though we had our deals with our parishes, and this is when we submitted the bulletin, and this is when we ordered the Advent candles, and we got our deal, and Jesus came into the mix and said, you know what? I'm going to mix things up a little bit and make you think about all the ways you're getting my word out there. And that's exactly what he did to us in 2020.
Yeah, and honestly, even on a greater level, we need to look at this, because we've talked about, just even from Maria from the Catholic Spirit, she's seeing more and more when she asks people, what parish do you belong to? And they'll give her 3 answers.
Yeah.
And our own family is an example of that. And I think more and more it's not as clear cut as with, even though from a strict church standpoint, each pastor is spiritually responsible for all the souls in his area. Realistically, it's getting less and less like this. And like we've said here, you're shopping more online. So your choices are, do you lean into that, and how?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you try to stay to your very strict ideas? Now, what I've talked about for a while is I think that, regionally, you have much more of a greater pull from a school standpoint. You're looking at your region for your school, because the day to day, you're driving 5 days a week. That's who you're pushing out to. For parishes, you can definitely reach out regionally, but people are a lot more willing to travel for that. So do you reach out more like liturgically? Do you reach out more from a community standpoint of voice, to try to resonate? Like, do you do that to try to bring people in? Or do you kind of stick with the same idea of, let's reach out to our, surrounding 10 neighborhoods, and these are our people, right? I think those are going to really be the questions, and how do we do so in a way that builds each other up, because the last thing we want is to try to compete with other churches and be like, oh, I'm going to get ahead of this other Catholic church, or whatever. That's not what we want. There is a home for all of Christ's followers in all of our parishes. How do we do it? I think that's really going to be that bigger challenge moving forward.
Yeah, it makes me wonder about outreach to people who've started, at least for me, I look at the numbers of who's watching our Facebook Live and our YouTube Mass, and both when we're streaming it and later. And we have no way of knowing who those people are, and are they registered parishioners, and are they connected, and are they engaged, and are they even, are they baptized? Are they plugged into any parish at all? And it just makes me think about, how do we take people who've maybe started, like Emily said, who kind of feel safe because it's anonymous and they're not walking into a building if they're afraid of feeling judged, or, whatever wounds they're carrying. How, once it's safe, how do we invite them in instead of just sort of anonymously tuning in from their living room in a way that's really like low stakes? And I don't know the answer to that.
And Rhonda, you bring up a good point of, are we inviting them in, or are we waiting for them to figure out our system? Patty isn't on the call today, but she would get all the credit for this. But we established a system about a year ago where when a new person registers, we know who's reached out to them. And then pre-COVID, we would have, I termed it brunch with the bunch. But we had a system where we would mail them a postcard saying we're going to have brunch after Mass. Then I would have the parish council each call them personally of the week of and say, hey, I'm looking forward. I'd love to sit at your table. Here's my name, da 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 da. And then we would announce to everyone, hey, if you registered or not, if you're new, please come to the brunch. And it created community, but it also sent a message to the wider parish that we want to welcome people in. And we invited people to bring a friend or whatever. One person's like, can I have brunch if I bring a friend, Dean? Sure, of course you can. Why? doesn't, of course you can. But we're going to have to be more intentional about that, because I think we're all mobile, and the idea that we all went to the same church as my grandma went to, and then my mom, that isn't happening. And the other thing I would ask is, we should now during COVID still be sending out messages of things to look forward to, and not just we're stuck. So like we're sending out a mailing tomorrow to all parishes that this is the schedule for Christmas, and then we have things to look forward to. We're going to do Mardi Gras virtual bingo on Fat Tuesday, which we did that for our fall festival, and parishioners keep asking Father and I, when are we going to do virtual bingo again? And such, but it's things people need, that hope, the hope that our faith tells us, but they also need that thing to be able to, oh, that's coming up, and then we're having a priest who's going to do a mental health, I'm calling it a fireside chat, just acknowledging the stress in the holidays, but meeting people where they're at, their context. But I do think we have to be thinking about giving people stuff to look forward to, not false promises, not, hey, we're going to have brunch with the bunch. We don't know that yet. Start planning it, but we do need to, in our messaging, have stuff to look forward to. And some of that's stuff the Archdiocese, our mailing tomorrow emphasizes the Archbishop's 5-part series video, and then emphasizes internal stuff. But internal is always better. You have to have that and then augment it with stuff from outside your parish. But just a thought, you got to be giving them that, what am I looking forward to? Because if you decided to check out as a parish right now, and I'll talk to you when COVID's over, and the only way I measure our success is if you came to Mass or not, well, then if you're in my job, you're looking at really bad budgets. And that's going to affect ministry, because whether you like it or not, you need to fund things. So just think about, what are we saying, or how are we dialoguing, saying, what are ideas you have that we can do safely? We started a St. Joseph Cares card thing. We have all the young kids writing cards out and mailing them to the older people. I had an old person call me last week thanking me for it. She said, why did I get it? I go, well, we start with the wisest and go to the youngest. And she just laughed and she said, so you're saying I'm really old, Dean? I said, I did not say that. But you're asking me what system I chose. We're starting with the wisest and going to the youngest. That's our method. But think about things people can look forward to, because we got a long tunnel here until the vaccine and everything happens. That's my 2 cents.
Well, and I think realistically looking at that, yes, at some point in the next several months, we will have a vaccine, but that's not going to flip the switch and have everybody comfortable with coming back to Mass. This is going to be a long process, even after a vaccine's out and available to everyone. I think that this COVID time is going to have a long range PTSD for people. I mean, a lot of people are not going to be comfortable for a long time with going back to normal as we knew it before. It's going to take, we're going to have to, I think this is a great conversation, strategically introduce people to in-person gatherings again, to, I don't know what it looks like, but I think that the idea that there's a vaccine, okay, now we can come back and everyone can congregate and we can have, 1,000 people at Mass again, is unrealistic. And people are going to be very uncomfortable with that method of moving back into in-person gatherings. It has to be a very strategic step-by-step in moving towards that again. And so I'm very grateful that we're having this conversation now, because I don't know that I've heard this conversation in the past about what that looks like and what the steps are going to look like to fully integrate as a parish again.
I think the Catholic cemeteries too will be a unique benchmark for you guys too, in terms of like, when you welcome people back to your parishes, it will be a more immediate thing. It'll be within the next few months, it'll be the next year. For us, it'll be a sign of re-engaging with the faith. Do they want to be buried in a Catholic cemetery now? Will our numbers change? I mean, that's kind of, I think we're going to be a longer term viewpoint as to whether or not people have fallen away from the faith or re-engaged with the faith through this weird pandemic time, and just kind of see how that that shakes out and how that looks. So we're a little different that way because our numbers are going to be dependent on whether or not people think there's value in Catholic burial. So it's going to be interesting to see because we don't have the immediate worries that you do of reopening a parish, but we also host events. We also do things, you know, we have our Memorial Day Mass usually in May, which we probably won't this year. But it'll be kind of you can use us as kind of a long-term sign, like, how are your numbers? How are you doing? Have people re-engaged with the faith? I don't know. We've been very busy. That's all I know.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to, if there's no objections, could we shift to Christmas of what are people doing for Christmas masses? And are you making changes? Like our regular schedule, we've only been in one of our 3 churches. We're considering opening the other 2 just for Christmas, but there's a whole bunch of headache with that. The churches haven't been open in months. What are other people doing for Christmas, or what adjustments are you making for just your Christmas masses that you're maybe not doing in your regular schedule right now? Just to try to get some new ideas. I have a staff meeting today, so I'd love to share anything anybody's doing.
So what we decided to do, we had a lot of conversation, probably at least maybe end of October, beginning of November. We ended up doing a registration system for our Christmas masses so that we could, so we're using Sign Up Genius to do that. And then because we're having a big debate, do we want to do overflow seating in our activity center and live stream into those other areas or not? But we just really decided that it's better. What we did is we capped it at about 75 people below what our capacity would be. So that if we have walk-ins, we have some flexibility. But then we've always sent like a postcard inviting everybody in our parish boundaries to our Christmas Mass. We didn't want to not do that, but we also knew that that's not going to help, our people that are our parishioners. So we're just sending it out saying, here's our live streaming times. And it goes to we have a Christmas page that we do for the last couple of years. We have a page and what we advertise as Christmas in White Bear Lake. And we have a URL that's Christmas in WBL. So it's easy to remember rather than our parish website. So we're sending that out and then we'll put our live stream player right in that. Now, if they get there, they're on our website, they might see, oh, there's registration for in-person Mass. I haven't quite figured out the nuances, like, yes, we're not keeping you from that, but people, I suppose, could be offended by the fact that they're not getting invited to an in-person Mass. I'm not really sure. But I guess if you're only going twice a year, you're probably happy to do it in your living room anyway, maybe. I don't know. So that's what we've decided to do, and we'll see how it goes. But and our masses are all full now. I mean, we have one Mass, our 5 o'clock Mass is already, it filled up we put our registrations out a week ago and we're at 80% full.
John, what is your capacity?
Well, we're saying we'll probably have more families, more family units, because the reality is like, if I'm getting together with my family for Christmas, we're saying probably our max is 250. We have a lot of, normally we know we can get that many people in there, but for our normal Sunday Masses, we usually are at 175. So, and in the worst case scenario, if we just had a lot of singles or couples that came, we do have the ability to we have a community rooms that we can quickly, I think we'll have probably it just in case, but we also know that there may be a possibility we have to turn people away.
And how many Masses did you say you're doing?
We have 3, which is what we normally do for Christmas. Well, the last year we did only 3 as well. Although Father did say that if we filled up, he'd be willing to add another Mass, like Christmas Day, early afternoon, if we needed it. So we thought, rather than start with the 4 Masses, we would see how full we get on the 3 and how quickly. And then we decided a date a week ahead of time, if we need, which, you know, if he wants to add it in, we're gonna know like really soon because we're at 80% full. But we said a week out, we have to make a decision about whether or not we want to add another mass in. So, so we do have that in the hopper over here. We just wanted to make sure we gave ourselves a little bit of time to secure the volunteers and folks that we would need on that. And
Ron,
yes,
You brought up a point I'm hearing from a lot of parishes. The challenge is that their volunteers are stepping back. So it's very hard to do the mass well. Like I know parishes that are canceling, they might have had 4 masses on the weekend, they're going to 2 because they can't have the same 75-year-old man be the usher at all 4 masses.
yeah,
Such, and that is a concern. One thing that I wanted to ask people, we're doing similar mailing with when there's virtual mass, but we're going to be doing, you can watch the mass and then you can receive communion afterwards in the parking lot.
oh,
Some of our parishioners are not comfortable coming into a mass for an hour, but it would be right after they've watched it, which I know other parishes have been doing it. I think my hometown, St. Joseph, Waconia, was doing it over the summer too, but that's one thing that they're looking at doing. I know other parishes are looking at doing similar things to where they are also going to be doing, you can receive communion, and then if you need an anointing or a blessing, they're actually using fish houses out in the parking lot and people drive up. But ways that we can connect, but do it in a way that is safe. Amanda,
Dean, are they watching it from from their cars or even from home? Are you allowing time for them to come from their home?
they can watch it from home. And then, but it's going to be like right after mass. So, you know, the people that are there will leave having received and go out to their cars, realizing that then the parking lot needs to empty out. And then they can come up, and it's hard, right? Because everyone's like, well, nah, that's not, well, okay, but we also have people that, you know, bring communion to the homes for people who can't come in. So I get it isn't ideal. I totally get that, but it is very important to people. We have a number of people that loved our parking lot masses, just loved it, but we can't do that in the winter very easily. I know some parishes are still doing that. They're going to have mass inside, and if you're not comfortable, you listen to the mass on your radio out in the parking lot. Well, okay, you're across the street at your house and you're watching the mass. It's the same thing. And so, but the point is doing it safely, and also having enough volunteers that want to on Christmas Eve be distributing communion through a drive-through line, possibly in a snowstorm. You know, and we've done creative things. We distributed palms that way. And then this is where the parish director and me comes in. We had palms and alms. We also had a box and people could put their envelope in it. We have people that still come to our office every week. We have a box outside the office. We can see it. It's 20 feet away from anyone. And they drop off their envelope and say, "Good morning, Lynn," to my front office. And that's their kind of ritual. And then they tell us if they couldn't hear the mass well. I hear that right away. We had sound issues. But that's their connection. So that's what they've deemed safe. But we're going to have to be creative. But I think with the help of the Holy Spirit, we have those gifts. But I am worried about volunteers stepping back, because everything I see on the news following Thanksgiving, we're going to have a surge on a surge. The Archbishop's letter about playing it safe and the governor's orders, as you recall, end the week of Christmas. So there's going to be new data.
yeah.
And
One
who
of
knows
the-
what'll come out.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why we didn't add 4 masses in to start with. We wanted to make sure we could cover that. I will say that one of the things that we've made for several years a big push on is inviting new people into, just saying, if you want to make a one-time commitment to help with ministries at Christmas, this is a way to share with and be Christ, you know, open the inn type thing. So we're not asking you to make a year-long commitment. And so we're doing a training like the Sunday right before the fourth Sunday of Advent for anybody, you know, hey, if you can be a sanitizer and stay for 15 minutes or whatever. I mean, we have plenty of like EMs trained and things like that, so that it would be maybe asking somebody to shift. But it has been a part of our tradition for Christmas and Easter to really say, hey, we know there's, you know, the Christmas and Easter Catholics that are showing up. We want to put our best foot forward to make sure they feel welcome and see the love of Christ in us, because we want them back. And so I think that helps us because it's not a new thing. And then we have a lot of people who that's just what they do is, you know, and younger folks.
So what we did is we sent out a Christmas assessment to try to get a feel for who was going to be coming to each mass, so we could get a kind of a feel for the numbers. And so I'm actually was just looking over the results. We like about 40% of parishioners are planning on watching it online. So we know that right off the bat that 40% of the people that would normally attend mass are not going to be attending. And then we will be having a 2 o'clock mass, a 4 o'clock mass, and a 10 p.m. mass on Christmas Eve, and then our regular 2 masses on Christmas Day. And the split between all the masses is pretty even. So knowing that we're not planning on doing a Sign Up Genius, just because Father felt strongly that there's a lot of people that may sign up and then at the last minute choose not to come, and then that prevents somebody else that is there wanting to attend. So we're not doing any sort of Sign Up Genius. It's kind of a first come, first serve. We are only opening the doors 30 minutes prior to mass. In the past, it's kind of been people come and they'll save seats and whatever, and we're trying to kind of do away with that this year. So it's really a first come, first serve when you show up. And then we also, one of the questions we asked in the survey was, if faced with large crowds, would you rather sit? We have a big open Archangel's Hall in the basement of our church. And so we asked if they'd rather sit in the overflow or if they'd rather watch online, and overwhelmingly 70% of people said that they'd rather watch online. So my guess is that we're going to have people showing up. If they don't have a seat, they're just going to go home and watch the mass online.
Are you gonna then, since it's first come, first serve, are you gonna in any way have some form of contact tracing? Or how are you gonna know if who is there?
We haven't so far ever done any sort of sign up for masses.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Brittany, when did you send out your assessment?
Last week.
Okay.
Yep, and we've had about 500 responses so far, and they keep kind of trickling in. We've been promoting it on Facebook and e-news and our bulletin, and it's on our website for people to fill out.
Perfect. That's a great idea. Would you be willing to share your questions on that?
Sure. It's just 3 questions. It literally, the first one was, what are your plans for Christmas at Mass? And we listed our Mass times. You can view it. Actually, it's on our website on our homepage if you want to take a look.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Then there was, if you plan on attending Mass in person, approximately how many people will be coming in your family, so we could kind of get an idea for numbers. And then if faced with a large crowd, would you rather sit in overflow or watch online? So it's just 3 really simple questions.
Well, yeah, that's a really good idea. We just opened our online sign up today, and we have added some extra masses for Christmas. So we added the 2 p.m. on Christmas Eve, and then we have 3 other Christmas Eve masses, and then we have 2 masses on Christmas Day. We typically have just 1 Christmas Day mass. And yeah, we're just really curious as to what it's going to look like. Are we going to have fill up mass, or are we going to have light crowds? I mean, we've never done Christmas in a pandemic, but obviously it's usually the most attended day of the year. So just trying to feel out what it's going to look like this year. So yeah, if anybody else has input on their signups, like I said, ours is just opening today, so I have no idea what it's going to look like. But if you opened it a week ago, or what are you filling up? Is it light? I'm interested to hear what other churches are seeing right now.
I can speak to St. Tim's and Blaine. So similarly, I created a survey about a month ago and asked people to basically say, you know, would you be interested in in-person mass on Christmas Eve, on Christmas Day? and use that data. And the pastor and liturgist basically decided we're doing an in-person Christmas Day Mass, an in-person Christmas Eve Mass, of course, streaming Mass. Our Christmas pageant is virtual. Our liturgist is working to basically create a video of like Christmas music prelude. So the equivalent of, which is going to be, I'm going to stream on our YouTube and Facebook. So it's like you can virtually, normally you'd come to church half an hour before the liturgy to listen to the Christmas music prelude. That's virtually being offered. And then we're looking at a parking lot Mass on Christmas Day. We're doing our Blue Christmas service only virtually. We're doing our Advent penance service. We're filming it to make it online, but then also allowing 50 people. And my plan is to send out a flock note today to the whole parish saying these are all the Christmas and Advent options and letting people know. I think I'm going to open Christmas liturgy sign up. We use eCatholic, the eCatholic website form option. I think I'm going to open it up, not the Monday before Christmas, but the Monday before that to let people know, like, okay, this is when sign up is. But I think there's just no way around it being a logistical kind of headache because, more and more people are registering and then they email and say, oh, I was exposed to COVID or my husband tested positive. So then, it's just a lot of, if we're capped at 125, well, we're full, but now these people canceled and there's no way to have a wait list. So I just think it's going to be, I'm just sort of prepared for the next 3 weeks to be really sticky in terms of trying to track the names and the numbers, because we are very firm in requiring pre-registration and knowing who comes and who's a no-show so we can do contact tracing. So that's the plan for St. Tim's. I'm glad to share any more specifics if anyone wants.
Rhonda, are you discovering, we are at St. Joseph's, that usually the number of people that no show for Mass is kind of the same number that I call them Mass crashers, just because I like to have fun with words. But so if we have 20 that don't show, we have about 20 that show up that weren't registered. Are you having similar experience?
Not really, because I've really stressed over and over again, we cannot accommodate walk-ins. Sorry, for the safety of all,
Okay.
please, if you're not pre-registered, join us for streaming Mass, because our pastor and liturgist really want to try to kind of get people into this routine that,
No, and
yeah. Mm-hmm.
You've done a better job of that than we have. And we also leave cushion on our registration for the people that come, it's about 15% of our occupancy. We just don't allow people to register because it's cushion.
Right. And I think
Okay.
honestly, our biggest challenge has been people register and then they feel really compelled to come because it's like, well, I registered, I need to go. And so like my communication lately has been like, if you feel sick at all, if you have any symptoms, like even if you're not able to call an email and say, hey, I'm not coming, just don't come. Like, I think we're running into like some really over responsible people that feel like they have to show up because they registered, and saying like, no, just don't show up, if you have any question. So that's a funny line to be walking, to try to be kind of discouraging people, but it's where we are.
I need to go. Thank you, everyone. I have another Zoom at 10. Take care. God bless.
One of the other questions that I had too was, how are you going to be emphasizing giving with not as many people in the churches? What are your thoughts on what you're going to be doing to try to encourage, a lot of people do like a special Christmas giving in addition to their weekly, and we've been obviously promoting our weekly, but how is there wording or any specific or vague, even just ideas that you have of what are you going to do to encourage that end of the year giving, that Christmas giving, and then starting out 2020, is anybody doing anything to say, have you thought about your tithe for 2021? Things have changed in your world, so maybe filling out an EFT or things like that, on how to start 2021 with a new perspective of how to give, because you may not be attending Mass. So any thoughts on any of that?
We
we
just
received-
created a video that is coming out today with all of the Christmas details. So our associate pastor did, you know, information about here's how you sign up for Mass. We need everyone to sign up for Mass. Here's, you know, what to expect when you come to Mass. And he touched on the Christmas giving in that as well. And that, you know, it looks different this year. We don't have the baskets going around, but we still really rely on the generosity of our parishioners. And we would ask if you still, you know, could make a donation to St. Hubert if that's what you do at Christmas time in years past. So he's got that in the video. And then also I have a Christmas webpage on our website with the Mass times and the schedule for Advent and Christmas. And then I have just a big button on that page that says Christmas giving for people to give really easily right there too.
I was gonna say, we got a question about that from, I think at the Archdiocese, that was one of the questions. So that was one of the ideas of kind of coming up with sort of a form letter as kind of adding some wording around that. So again, hopefully we'll have that up this week. One of the ideas, and I actually asked a couple common giving platforms that I know handle giving for parishes, was the idea of fund a need, like they do when they do like Catholic school fundraisers. They're like, you know, fund this need, fund that need. And so someone kind of had that idea who had emailed us saying, you know, parking lot care, sanitization for 1 week or things like that, and putting those dollar amounts in their giving as kind of that idea of putting a more concrete idea behind what you're giving to support, essentially, you know, digital ministry even, right? Things like that. So it sounds like that is something that's really possible through the current giving platforms. So if there was a concept you wanted to try of just saying, you know, Christmas giving, either fund a need, or this is, you know, give the gift of something for your parish, you know, you should be able to be a little bit more creative if you wanted to do that. Otherwise, like I said, hopefully we can have some general language that might be helpful too.
So at St. Bart's, we are doing a couple mailings right now. We've got one that's just going out about our specifically our Christmas liturgies and the process for that. Then it'll follow up. We've got one going to the printer right now that's specifically about end of the year giving. And it's going to be basically a brochure. I think it's 17 by 11 folded. The front of it's just going to, again, encourage people about end of year giving as a Christmas gift. It's I think got a little bit of information about you know, the like charitable contributions type of information, just general. And then inside there's actually a number of companies for matching gifts. So that's part of the message too. If your company check this list to see if you can do matching gifts, that sort of a thing. Then the back of it's got, I'm going to have information about just a couple of our other upcoming events. So that should be going out, I think probably at the end of this week, maybe early next week. And then we'll also follow up. We've then created a specific Christmas giving button this time for, you know, or a fund for, so that's the first time we've done that this year as well. So, but I like that idea of the video, Megan, that you mentioned. We're also trying this year for the first time Giving Tuesday. So we've got that going on today. And again, that does have a specific need, kind of COVID related expense, that sort of thing. So we're doing most of that. I didn't have enough time to get that out to everybody in print. So we're doing a lot of that promotion electronically, our e-newsletter and Facebook and on the website. So those are just kind of some things that we're doing along that line.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any other topics for Christmas or Advent or something completely off that topic? We're kind of, to be mindful of time, we're kind of nearing the end of our time together, but if there's any last topics, let me know and we can discuss that quickly as well.
Well, if anyone has other, I think some of you have already shared through the communicators talk note, but if anyone has other ideas of how they're celebrating Advent with their families, outdoor Christmas celebration or Christmas decorations or things like that, to go ahead and plug that in that channel. We're talking about trying to have a conversation about that on the Rediscover Hour for next Friday. So if you have any other thoughts on that, right now we're like, if there's something that really stands out, we might do like a montage of little short interviews. If not, then we might just have one of us on there kind of just discussing about like, hey, here's the great things that are happening at parishes and giving some examples. So yeah, if you could just plug that in, hopefully in the next couple of days, that would be fantastic. And I guess one other thing too, you guys might have already noticed this, but we're actually going to be rebranding the Rediscover Hour. So we're calling it, as of January 1st, we're calling it Practicing Catholic. And the concept came from the idea of, I think Archbishop Hebda said it was wonderfully vague. And I think the idea was that we're, like everyone's practicing to some degree, right? Oh, yes, I know. Is that, obviously we're practicing, not perfect. So you can kind of think of it that way. You can also think of it as ways that we practice our faith. There's just different things we can do with that. And since we've been moving away from the Rediscover branding, it makes sense to kind of move in a different direction. And hopefully we'll be doing things more with Spotify or other ways of doing things online as well. And that is actually a topic. So we've been, someone in our office, Cami, who has been working with the evangelization office before this, she's been doing some really cool things with learning how you can do radio shows from like Squadcast and Headliner and other things. So for those who are looking to get a little bit more into like the radio show realm or podcast realm, that might be a cool topic for a later meeting too.
Thanks, Nicole. I just have a couple notes from Melissa too. Obviously, all of you got the information that she is leaving her position at Pax Christi. She knows that there were several applicants for the position, but she really has no idea who. So if anybody applied from this group, she's sorry that she doesn't really have any say or input in what happens with that position, but hopefully good luck if any of you applied. Also, she would love if you could connect with her on LinkedIn, Melissa Nault. So if anybody has LinkedIn and wants to connect, she'd love to connect there. And hopefully at some point in the near future, she'll be able to join us on a call and maybe present on the new position that she is diving into this next week. So Melissa has been a huge resource to us and has really been the pioneer for this group. So we're so grateful for her time and for her expertise and for all that she's done to lead us over the past years. So on that note, I think we can wrap up here, and thank you everyone for joining us today. And we hope to see you again next month in January. Thanks everyone.
Thanks for all the great info.